Yesterday, shocking new statistics revealed an 85% surge in its use over the past year. And even more alarmingly, those aged 16 to 24 made up 2/3 of ketamine users, with an increasing number of under 18s seeking treatment for addiction.
It comes just days after the revelation that drag star James Lee Williams, better known as the Vivian, passed away from a cardiac arrest linked to ketamine use.
And many of you at home have shared your heartbreaking stories. We're keeping these people anonymous, but here's a look at the devastating effects.
I was 16 when I first became addicted to ketamine. After taking it for 5 years, I spent 2 weeks in intensive care and nearly died. I'm now 22 and I've been sober for a year and a half, but I've absolutely ruined my body.
I first tried ketamine when I was 15 and used it every day for 7 years. I'd always had a fear of not being good enough, and ketamine got me out of that mind frame without the consequences of a hangover. But the more I took, the more tolerance I grew, leading me to take more and more. I started to pass blood in my urine, and the pain was excruciating. It felt like you were urinating glass. I was left completely isolated in my room. I felt like a burden.
My son's ketamine addiction has turned our lives upside down. He lives like an agoraphobic, as he can't walk 50 yards without needing to urinate. I spent my life savings on sending him to rehab multiple times. But as soon as he's home, he starts using again. I've seen things a mother should never see, which will stay with me forever.
And we're joined now by Steph Massey, who's head of clinical care at the Addiction Rehab Clinic, Delamere in Cheshire. Good morning, Steph. This is devastating. These figures, these numbers, particularly among young people, it seems as though we've reached a real crisis moment. Why is this happening right now?
We've seen such a massive surge in the usage of this drug. And, you know, I mean, it's a drug that is as a licensed use within a medical setting, but we're seeing it now, particularly with young people. I mean, the statistics speak for themselves. 85% increase in that usage. It's huge. And it's certainly what we're seeing in treatment centres.
Do you know why? Is there a reason? Has it suddenly become fashionable? What is it that's suddenly
post-pandemic
driving the ketamine use?
So I think post-pandemic definitely is something that we consider as being a causative kind of factor for all addiction, really. But what we've seen, particularly with ketamine, is the fact that it is widely available. It is a relatively cheap price point, even comparatively to things that are socially acceptable, such as alcohol. You know, for £10 now, you can purchase a gram of ketamine, and you know, it is available on things such as social media and delivered to your door.
Extraordinary when you hear that. OK, let's talk specifically about ketamine, because my understanding of ketamine was that it was a horse tranquiliser.
Yes,
and it was used when we were going through university. You knew that vets used it to tranquilise horses. What actually is it and what does it do?
So interestingly, a lot of medications that are used for vets on mammals are things that we use every day in healthcare, and ketamine is exactly the same. So it's generally used as an anaesthetic type product, and it helps to sedate. And it's also used for things like minor procedures by anaesthetists, and more rarely, but with certain cases of depression, but again with very stringent kind of checks regulated in a specific manner by healthcare professionals, and it is used widely in the NHS every day.
And in terms of its effects then, Steph, what does it do? Like, what does it do in a recreational sense?
So essentially it causes that sedating type effect, and people respond to it quite differently. So for some people, they'll have like a euphoric kind of out-of-body, almost dissociative experience that gives them some release. So it might be from trauma, or it might be something that they're seeking, just that kind of escapism. For other people, it has different effects whereby they encounter something called a K-hole, which leaves them feeling very depressed, very isolated, kind of, can be quite a negative experience, and it varies from person to person.
So can you tell us a little bit about the risks? Well, let's talk short-term first of all, and then the long-term risks of using it as well.
So short-term risks are, it can affect lots of things for a person from a health perspective. We start to see differences in the way that someone may be behaving, their focus, their attention might start to shift, their ability to concentrate on things, and short-term memory can be affected. longer term risks become more severe, so those things are more exaggerated over time because of the parts of the brain that this drug impacts, but also it can affect really significantly our urinary system, so our bladder and our urinary tract system.
I mean, hearing some of those people talking about on that film that we made, talking about their experience, the one mum saying, my son now can't walk 100 yards without needing to go to the toilet at a young age. I mean, that is just crippling.
Devastating, and it's something certainly that we see on a regular basis at Delamere Health, where we're caring for people who've got those kind of needs, young people needing to get up to go to the toilet sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 times in the night. You know, when you think about how much that impacts your ability to function the next day, your concentration levels, you know, anyone who's got children, who's had a baby knows how debilitating that can be. And it certainly is something that's really affecting our young people that are using this drug.
So you've just mentioned the young people. What can we do to try and prevent it? How do we talk to our children? I know you've got 2 children yourself. Have you had conversations yet with your kids?
So I have. So I've got a 7 and a 10-year-old. My 10-year-old's about to go into high school in September. And like every parent, you know, I've got all the usual angst that comes along with that. But I have entered some of those conversations. And I think it's trying to find a natural way in. So even using something like this programme today to say, I've seen something on television, it referred to, and entering into a discussion. I think the more educated that parents can be around some of these substances, particularly ketamine, the easier it is to enter into a conversation, and even just broaching it simply. You know, with my son, for example, we went to the park and we actually saw some of the nitrous oxide canisters,
the little tiny,
the small silver canisters, and my son was asking, you know, what is that, Mum? So it allowed that opening up of a conversation, which then has evolved, and he's kind of gone away, had a think about it, and come back to me, you know, several days later, asking further questions. And it's allowed that opportunity for me to kind of gently introduce the subject without it being a lecture.
Or judgmental.
Or judgmental.
Yeah.
So my boys are 20 and 18 now, and I sat down with Jack yesterday because I knew we were going to be talking about this. He's just passed his driving test, so that's a whole nother worry for us, and talking about that and trying to understand and share his experience and my experience and the world of ketamine and drugs. The thing I think people will be worried about is getting things wrong. Steph, is there things that they should try not to do? Is there any no-nos when it comes to this conversation?
I think the main thing is to broach something in a non-judgmental way. Ultimately, this is a substance that's readily available. It's something that if you've got teenagers, they know about it, they've heard of it, if they've not tried it themselves. So I think that the more open you can be and you know, don't approach it with anger, approach it in an inquisitive kind of way, but try and inform yourself before you even enter the conversation so that you know a little bit about it. You know, it's often referred to as shorter acronyms, etc. So familiarising yourself with language they'd use.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Steph. That's been so helpful this morning. Thank you very, very much. If you've been affected by anything we've discussed, please head to our free This Morning app or our website, where you can